In a moment, we're going to go to the elections. We'll be going to Ohio to talk about voter suppression with The Nation magazine's Ari Berman. But before we do that, a moment ago, we played a clip of the Staten Island Borough President, James Molinaro, talking about the lack of American Red Cross response and the Red Cross apologizing, saying, you know, this was such a massive storm. They said afterwards, this is such a massive storm that it was difficult to actually get there. Well, Democracy Now! Has been on the ground from the beginning, and we're going to talk about who was there. We're joined by Democracy Now! Senior producer Mike Burke, Jessica Lee, our social media director who lives in Red Hook, and Steve Martinez, our video producer who lives in New Jersey, the hardest hit areas of the storm. Jessica, let's start with you, because what happened in Red Hook, and Mike, what you're talking about in speaking with the organizer for Occupy Wall Street in Rockaways, was quite stunning, the difference in the response. Jessica.
Right. So I've had sort of this triple hat the last week. I've been a resident in Red Hook, also stepping in as an organizer and also a journalist. So it's been an interesting experience. But what happened was, I think this flood in Red Hook has been a mirror for our community to see ourselves, and the organizations that were already in place, the networks, the friendships that were already there just sprung into action right the morning after the flood. I think about 2/3 or 3/4 of our neighborhood was flooded by about 3 or 4 feet of water. So we're talking every building, basement and first floor is wet and needs to be cleaned. Almost all the businesses in Red Hook have been affected by this, and people knew that the morning after, and nobody waited for the city, no one waited to hear anything. They started organizing. The story of the Red Hook Initiative, which I think has made the news, is really beautiful because they had no plan. What I heard was that they woke up, they found that the water had come within inches of their building, and they still had power. And people started calling them, and they just took action. So that started Occupy Red Hook, connected to Occupy Sandy. We got volunteers the next day. Down in the commercial district where I live on Van Brunt Street, every single business needed help, and neighbors just started helping neighbors. There was no question of we're waiting for anything. I've still not seen the Red Cross. I've not seen the city. There's been some assistance with FEMA paperwork, but really neighbors all weekend working together with hundreds of people who bicycled to Red Hook.
And the extent of the damage in Red Hook, it's underwater.
It was underwater for only a few hours. It drained away. So what's left is very wet furniture, flooring, everything. The walls have to come down, the floors have to come down. And right across the street from my house, actually, this volunteer center sprung out. And I still am not quite sure who's organizing it, but hundreds of people were down all weekend. And they didn't have a printer, and so I was printing flyers for people to canvass the neighborhood and talk to residents about their needs, whether it was food, medical, whether they needed certain tools, and they would bring that information back. They'd reorganize, send volunteers back out, and this is all happening without really anybody knowing who's in charge.
So you have the